today's episode, we want to focus more around like healthy relationships and understanding more about what healthy relationships actually are. What would you say if you could sum up what a healthy relationship is? What would you say it is?
I guess there are some core kind of pillars, isn't it, that I talk about, that I say if we have that, you've got there's a good start to that relationship. So you would say good communication, emotional and physical intimacy. So intimacy is really important down there. I guess trust, this understanding level of honesty in your relationship. Those are the core ones that you said. So there's this mutual understanding for both of you. So those would be the core things that you want to look out for. I would say the foundation to a good relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of people will say, yeah, okay, this is what I'm looking for in a relationship, or this is what a healthy relationship is. And I've got some myths that I have got on my phone that I wanted to share with you. And these are myths that people say is a healthy relationship, and I want to get your view on it. So the first one, and this one, is believing that relationships should always be like a fairy tale with constant romance and no challenges. What do you say to that?
What do you say? It's like, romance. I think we're watching too many of those movies that, we think that it needs to be where we fall in love and we kind of walk into the sunset and we're happily ever after. That's not a real relationship. So no,
Isn't
that
that
is
what
definitely
we're consumed with as well? Like if we look at social media, if we look at films, if we look at what we're expected, because this is actually called the fairy tale myth. So it's interesting because we're sold this idea of this is what a relationship is. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, that is, I agree completely. I think, being brought up, in a generation of a lot of used to watch lots of movies, Bollywood movies, where it was all about, they fall in love, they perhaps, have this, they fight for their relationship and then they get married and it's happily ever after. But no one shows that in between stage of where there is disagreement or, you don't agree on certain issues. How do they resolve that? It's very much about, you see each other, your eyes meet across the room, and that's it. So no, I don't think that's how real relationships work. So going back to what I was saying earlier on about the pillars of a foundation of a good relationship, where is that? Where is the communication? Where is the emotional intimacy? I think physical intimacy is important, but I think emotional intimacy sometimes gets missed quite a lot.
What's emotional intimacy? What do you mean by emotional intimacy in a relationship?
So mutual understanding each other, being connected, I also think sometimes we think that, our partners need to be our best friends. And I don't think you have to be best friends, but I think there needs to be a level of understanding with each other where you're able to openly communicate how you feel, what you want, what you don't. You're able to have these discussions in a very safe manner where, if there is a disagreement, that's okay. We disagree, but it's a very healthy way of communicating where things don't break down just because you have got very different perspectives.
Do you feel like healthy is also like, for example, if we do have a disagreement about something in a relationship, do you think a healthy relationship is about, okay, we've had a disagreement, how are we going to move forward and being on that same team rather than we've had a disagreement and we're not going to try and resolve this?
So I think you can have a disagreement and be the bit that you said, it's about being on the same team. So you can disagree on the same team, but you've got very different perspectives, and that's okay. So you kind of negotiate, what is that going to look like for both of you? So where is middle ground? Does that mean that one of us might have to kind of shift a little bit more than the other? Yeah, but it's about so this thing about being on the same team is really important. I think for couples, sometimes in relationships or even friendships, we almost think that we have to be in opposing teams. It's not good. Why can't I be on an opposing team? Because if you're on an opposing team, you're working against each other, isn't it? Because it almost becomes point scoring.
Yeah. Is this a lot of what you see in like the therapy space when you're working with couples? Do you see a lot of people there on different teams rather than the same team?
Yeah, I think, that's something that we discuss quite a lot, because it's like she doesn't understand me or he doesn't understand me. And I'm like, no, I think a lot of times when there are disagreements, it's almost like, I'm not, they don't understand what I'm trying to say here. And what I talk about is that, if you approach a disagreement with, you need to know what I'm trying to say here, then it's almost you don't get hurt. Both of you don't get hurt. But I say if you approach it with curiosity or wanting to understand, then that doesn't, that line of communication doesn't break down because it's always about, I want to understand what you're trying to say here. What do you mean by that? But if you get quite defensive quite quickly, then that communication chain breaks down quite immediately, isn't it? So it's wanting to meet each other with curiosity, I guess, is really important in a relationship.
No, I hear that. And also I take it like a step further as well, because like say, for example, if someone is feeling dysregulated and they're not able to have or continue that conversation in that space, what advice would you give someone if they are feeling dysregulated? Would you say, no, still continue if your partner is looking for that curiosity? Or would you say have some time away and then come back?
Yeah, I think it's important to have some time away. Like I get sometimes, this question that gets asked a lot. We're told that we never sleep on a disagreement, always resolve it, before we, before going to bed. And I'm like, who said that? You can actually leave things. And I always say, put a pin on it. If you can see that your partner is getting quite distressed or quite upset, kind of say, right, like obviously can see that. I want to understand what, this is all about, but maybe this isn't a good time. So perhaps, let's come back to this. It could be a few hours later. It could be the next day. But it's where you both communicate when this will get picked up again. Because the other thing that sometimes can happen is one sees the other one getting upset. You just stop all communication and remove yourself. And that can be very difficult for the other person because it feels like, I don't know what this space looks like. How long am I going to have to sit in this space? So I think communicating that, maybe this is not a good time, kind of, stepping away from it is healthy. But also some of us can respond in ways that, there might be a trigger. So I might go into a freeze response. So I might just stop talking because I'm just so upset. And for your partner, for the other person, it might seem like you're really being difficult here. But actually, if you're able to communicate, I can't talk right now because I'm just quite upset. Can we talk about this later? That's really good. That's a win.